Welcome to Give Me Hope with your host and author, Johanna. Come join the conversation as Johanna focuses on sharing impactful personal narratives of loss. Her platform provides a safe space for individuals to express themselves, find comfort, and build connections as they navigate their grief journey. So now, please welcome the host of Give Me Hope, Johanna.
Good day, everyone. I am Johanna, and you are watching Give Me Hope with Johanna. Today, I would like to speak about gratitude. It is important to recognize that grief is unique and it's a personal experience. There is no universal method of coping. Practicing kindness and compassion are essential when you deal with your challenges. For me, gratitude means choosing to focus on the beauty that remains even amidst the shattered dreams and adversity. It entails recognizing the values of life and appreciating every single moment as a gift. Through practicing gratitude, I have managed to shift my perspective in finding joy in simple pleasures and build resilience. Prioritize self-care. Engage in activities that provide you comfort and practice mindfulness. There are resources available, including support groups, counseling services, and online communities that can help you and assist you in coping with your grief. Remember that grief is a unique and individual experience. Be patient with yourself and do not hesitate to reach out for help. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who voted for me to participate in Author of the Year event in Hollywood in October. We just received our results, and I am excited to share with you that I will be representing my book, Navigating Through Losses and Grief, Think Again, at the event. I feel honored to have my work acknowledged like that, and I will keep you all updated with my journey. If you haven't read my book yet, you are very, very welcome to scan the barcode, that one. If you would like to read my book and read my story, and if you are navigating through grief, it is definitely a very good book to read. For those of you who is struggling to find gratitude in your lives, I recommend starting with small steps. Dedicate a few minutes each day to reflect on the positive aspects of your life. And no matter how insignificant they might seem, you can record these moments in a journal and you can share it with friends. And then you can take a moment to appreciate them quietly. I feel very honored to share this journey today with Jillian, with her journey where she reflects and she will show us how she turned her challenges into opportunities and growth and healing. I truly believe that this is where the magic starts, in those moments when we are willing to be vulnerable, authentic, and we are open to share our struggling and our grief stories with the public. In 1996, at just 13 years old, Jillian Tant embarked on a profound journey as an immigrant, moving with her family of 5 from South Africa to Wilson, North Carolina. At the age of 12 years old, she was determined and resilient and became a naturalized citizen in 2008. For a time, Jillian enjoyed a stable life, a loving life, through her teenager life and also all the way into her 20s. However, the following decade brought unimaginable challenging pain and grief to her life. At the age of 33, she unexpectedly experienced the heartbreaking loss of her husband, Daryl. 3 years later, before she was 36, she lost her father as a pillar in her life. And then just 2 days before her 40th birthday, she had to face devastating loss with her partner, Allan. Despite all of these profound losses, Jillian's spirit remains unbroken. She is committed to honoring these memories of the three most important men in her life. She immersed herself in passion for photography, capturing moments that reflects her journey towards peace and fulfillment, demonstrating an inspiration of resilience in the face of grief. Please let's welcome Jillian Tant.
Hey, Johanna.
Good
How are
morning,
you?
Jillian. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you for coming on to my show.
You're welcome.
Would you mind just telling us a little bit about your story of coming to America?
Sure. My family had come here to North Carolina for a holiday. It was supposed to be a 6-month holiday, and after 3 months, we were all very homesick. So we decided to go home early. And within a month and a half, my parents had decided that nope, South Africa was not heading in the right direction and we needed to. And that was based on the safety of our family and for opportunities moving forward. So
And that was already in a very early stage of your life,
it was,
1996.
I had just started high school, so I did have an established group of friends. I felt very stable, and I did not want to move. That was definitely not on my agenda. And once the decision was made, it only took about a month for everything to happen. We left everything in South Africa. We each had 2 bags, and that's all we started our life in America with was 2 suitcases each. So it was definitely a challenge. Fortunately, I did quite well in school, so I didn't have that part of the challenge. But finding new friends, growing new support base, it was just the 5 of us for a long time. So that was
Yes,
definitely
I can definitely tell you that I know exactly what you're talking about
hmm
because as most of my listeners now know by now is that I am also coming from South Africa and we moved here in 2016 and also with just 2 bags each, and
right.
we had to really just start our lives from scratch again. But if you want to work hard and you want to make a better life for your children, you do what you have to do, hey?
Correct. That's absolutely it. And you have to work together too.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So let's start with your story, Jillian. You've got quite a unique story there. Would you like to start to speak about your husband, Daryl, and tell us how you met, how your life was, and also you said that I can ask you about the age between the two of you as well. So if you want to explain everything and tell us your story, I'll be grateful.
I can. I was in my mid to late 20s when we met. We did work together, and it was a little bit unusual when we met. We were friends for a while, and slowly the relationship started building, and we'd meet for breakfast before work in the mornings, and we weren't living together at this point, but um, there was a 31-year age difference between the two of us.
Wow.
And that it seems like a lot, but I feel like I am a bit of an old soul, and he was young at heart. And he had had a lot of experiences through his life. He had been served in the army for 23 years, and he had traveled with the military, but it had always been work related. It hadn't been for fun. And I enjoyed traveling, so that was something that I was able to bring to him and to expose him to as well. So we sort of worked very well together in the aspect of him being fairly young at heart, me being a bit of an old soul. So the age difference didn't really feel that big of a difference.
Okay. Was he a South African or was he American?
Oh, he was very American. He grew up, he was born and grew up within 45 miles of where we live, very rural North Carolina. Um, so he was involved in hunting and being outdoors and that kind of thing. So, which I didn't mind because I was I enjoyed the outdoors as well. Not hardcore like hiking mountains and things, but I didn't mind going out and riding four-wheelers and camping and things like that. So we had a good time together.
Sounds like he was very young at heart.
He was, absolutely.
And you didn't have any children with him?
We did not have children. He had children from a previous relationship. So at that point, as a matter of fact, his kids were older than me. So, so we had, he didn't want children. I I had as a young, when I was younger, I wanted to be like my mom. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, a housewife, that kind of thing. And
Okay.
when we discussed kids, I knew he didn't want any. And I spoke to a friend of mine, and she's like, well, she doesn't want children because she has her husband she's in love with, she has her dogs, she can go where she wants to, when she wants to. And she said she's sort of selfish with her time with her husband. And it sort of turned a light bulb on, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm feel that way too. So it didn't take long for me to realize that kids were not an important part of our relationship, and I was okay with that, and that's sort of followed me for the rest of my life, or so far, because I'm still in a point where I'm not interested in having kids.
Oh, wow. So, do you want to tell us what happened that he died?
Yeah, so it was a pleasant Saturday. It was in November, nice sunny afternoon. We had gone to the next town over to do a little bit of shopping because we were getting ready to head up to see his kids for Thanksgiving. And on the way home, I was driving. He was a passenger in the car. And halfway home, a truck coming from the opposite direction crossed into our lane and hit us head on. Um, and I later found out that he died basically on impact. So I'm very thankful that he didn't suffer through that. Um, I know, and I'm so thankful to know 100% certainty that the accident was not my fault. There is absolutely nothing I could have done to have changed the outcome of it. So that definitely does bring me peace. Um, Unfortunately, as a result of the accident, I was very injured. I was actually life flighted from one hospital to another just to go into a trauma center. I had internal injuries that needed to be operated on, broken leg. So I was in surgery for about 8 hours as a result of the accident. Um, I spent about 12 days in ICU, and when I was released, my parents had to move in with me because my house was better equipped than theirs at the time to deal with walkers and access in and out of rooms and in and out of the house and things like that. So it definitely was a challenge for a while, and they stayed with me for a little over a month and a half before they ended up to the house. So yeah,
Wow.
quite dramatic, quite challenging.
So when you guys were in the accident, um, were you unconscious and only found out later that he has passed, or did you immediately knew that he was gone?
So I was only my memory is blank from basically the time of impact until after the car stopped moving. Um, Unfortunately, my memories are very vivid of everything that happened that day and, around that time. I did not know that he had already died. Um, Looking back, I should have, with the way that the first responders removed him from the car. Um, but they were still acting as if there was a chance he was going to make it. So it was only once I had arrived at the hospital and they had done the scans and had already determined that they were going to have to send me to another hospital. That's when they told me that he had passed away. So that part was a bit traumatic because I was alone in a hospital. I didn't realize how bad my injuries were at that point. I was pretty certain my leg was broken because I have not felt pain like I had in that aspect, but I didn't know that that was actually the least of my worries at that point.
And then
Right.
there is a big story about a house and everything. Can you immediately fall into that story and then tell us about your dad's story and how he passed?
I can. So my dad um, had designed a house when we had lived in South Africa with the intention of building it for family. And because of the immigration, that didn't come to fruition. So when we moved here, we went ahead with the plans for the house. So I believe it was about 2011. My parents had started building the house, and no contractors were involved. It was just my parents who were building the house. They were laying the bricks, they were doing everything. And quite often, Daryl and I would go over and help with the house. In fact, we had just got back from our honeymoon. They were putting the floor down in the house. Daryl stepped on a piece of wood that wasn't screwed down. He went flying, and so did his wedding ring, his brand new wedding ring. So we had to go hunting for his wedding ring under this house. So um, there was a lot of time spent with the family, and finally we got the house mostly dried in, and the next step for progress on the house was actually putting up all the insulation. And in 2018, I went to South Africa to visit family and friends there for a few weeks. And I was going to be returning shortly after Mother's Day. So it was right around this time of year. And while I was gone, the plan was for my dad and my mom to finish putting up all the insulation in the house. And the Monday following Mother's Day, they were going to do the inspection to pass off the insulation so that they could start hanging sheetrock in the house. So, Mother's Day, I was in South Africa. I made a phone call back home to wish my mom a happy Mother's Day. My dad answered the phone, and because it was Mother's Day, I pretty quickly turned the conversation to wanting to speak to mom to wish her happy Mother's Day. And we spent a few minutes on the phone, and that was the end of the call. Well, with all the time zone differences, that next day, that Monday, I was woken up fairly early by a phone call from my brother and sister, and they told me that my dad had actually passed away from a heart attack late on Sunday. Um, they had just finished the last of the insulation, and my parents were sitting back, basically admiring the good job, and collapsed. There was nothing that could be done to help him.
Wow.
Um,
So,
so before I had left on holiday, um, a few months prior, I had met somebody as friends, and he had actually worked in the HVAC field. And my dad had very specific um, wants for how he wanted the HVAC system to be run in his new house. And every contractor he'd spoken to who was going to put in the HVAC system wanted to do it their way. Well, this friend of mine was Allan, and he had agreed to do it the way my dad wanted to, correctly, and it would pass code, but it would be a more difficult installation. So prior to me leaving on my holiday, I had actually worked with my dad and Allan, and we had all worked together to get all the HVAC systems installed in the house. And over the course of the trip, Allan and I had kept in contact, and towards the end of the trip, he had actually offered to come and pick me up from the airport instead of the original plans with my dad. So I'm actually very thankful that that is something that we had in place, because clearly my dad would not have to come pick me up. Um, so Allan picked me up from the airport. Once I got home, we kind of let things settle, for a few days. And then between my mom, my brother, and myself, and even with a little bit of input, the decision was that we were going to keep moving forward on this. We weren't just going to walk away from it at that point. It had been a dream of my parents for years. It was something that my dad was building for my mom and for all of us, in fact. Um, so the plan was to keep moving forward with the construction of the house. And that really brought Allan into the picture a lot more. We started dating shortly after that, and we spent just about every weekend over at my mom's house and finishing it up. Go ahead.
okay, so let me just ask you a few questions. So Allan is a South African again,
No,
correct?
Allan is
Oh,
American.
but he was in South Africa picking you up,
No, he picked me
because
up from the airport when I got back to Raleigh.
when you got back to, oh, okay, so
Yeah.
because it's just a little confusing.
Mhm.
Your parents were building a house in South Africa.
No, 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 here.
Oh,
This was in
yeah.
2018. Yes.
And you
Yes.
where were you then that you had to like be picked up in
So I
from the
had gone to
airport?
South Africa on a holiday.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I was now thinking, oh, you immigrated here and then
correct.
your parents was building a house again in South Africa after a
No,
few years. Okay, I think I have
they
the
were
story
building the
now.
house. They were building the house that they had designed to build in South Africa, but they were building it here.
Okay, okay, that all makes sense now. So you were in South Africa just visiting on a vacation after your
Correct.
first husband, Daryl's death.
Correct.
Okay, and
Correct.
then you came back and Allan was already in your life, as a
Correct.
friend,
Correct.
picking you up from the airport. Okay, I
Correct.
am with you again. Good, good. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that we all are on the same page. It was a little
Absolutely.
confusing about the South Africa and being
Hmm.
back. So, what year was this now?
This was 2018,
And Daryl, when did he die? Which year?
2015.
Okay, perfect. Well, before we start with your story with Daryl, do you want to just have a quick story about how you and Daryl met?
Me and Allan.
You and Allan, I mean. Sorry.
So
Yes,
Allan
we
and
are.
I had just met online. Um, neither of us were really looking for a relationship. We were both looking just to expand our friendship group. Um, I had I was sort of working through my grief over Daryl. Um, it had isolated me a lot. I had dealt with some pretty serious depression, um, especially the year after he had passed away. Once I'd physically started healing, then I needed to start mentally healing. So I had realized that I didn't have a very big circle of friends and I needed to work on it. And he had Allan had come in as part of that group of friends that I was trying to build up. Um, so we had spent quite a bit of time together prior to my trip, but hadn't really decided if we were going to date or not. And I think once I got back home from my holiday, we both realized, life is short and it's kind of what we want to do.
Nice, nice. Jillian, do you want to maybe just tell us who was there for you after your father? You do have siblings also still, and your mother?
Yes, so the relationship that I have with my mom has definitely become a whole lot closer since my dad passed away. Part of it I think is because I understand what she's going through now, which is a little bit strange to be the daughter supporting the mom. Um, but I understand when she's feeling her sadness or whatever emotion she's going through. I understand it because I had already gone through that situation with
Of,
Daryl.
lo- of
So
losing a
correct. My relationship with my brother improved a lot over this time period as well because he was also helping with the house. He and Allan became very, very close friends as a result of that. Um, my mom and Allan became very close as a result of that. Allan would call my mom mom as if we were married and had been for years. So that was a lot of it too. The other support, big support I had was actually my godmother who lives in England. Um, because of the car accident, I had quite quite a lot of anxiety surrounding driving. And while I was in a relationship with Allan, I actually got a job that needed to do a lot of driving. So in the early mornings when I was on the road and everybody here was asleep, I was actually able to call and speak to my godmother in time difference. And she had actually lost her husband about 3 years before Daryl had passed away. Um, her husband had had cancer. So so she was a huge support for me through the loss of Daryl, then my dad, and then and still is to this day. We still keep in touch
Mm.
quite.
I am so sorry to hear that. So let's go into Alan's story and the life that you had together, and tell us also, you are in photography, but let's first start with Alan's story and then hear how the photography played a role in your life.
So Alan and I started dating, it was probably early 2019 that we really started seriously dating. He moved in with me shortly after that. Um, we both knew that we probably weren't going to get married to each other. He had had a previous marriage. I, I had, again, everything surrounding my relationship with Daryl and everything. So neither of us were in a rush to get married. We were kids together and everything. But we lived together, shared all of our expenses, and it was as if we were. Um, we were both very supportive of each other. Um, and in 2020, when the pandemic hit, because my mom's house is rural, she does not have good internet connection. So she actually started using one of our spare bedrooms as her office. And during that time, she was here at my house, and I was not working at this point. Still had not returned to work after Daryl passed away. Um, a lot of my time had been taken up working on the house with my mom. I had basically become the project manager for the entire house project. But she was finally into her house. She's been living in it now since 2019. Um, but she would often ask me to include her errands when I was out and about during the day. And because of Alan's work schedule, oftentimes he would ask me to run errands for him as well, picking up parts for work, going and paying invoices, whatever the case was. And it sort of got to the point, mid 2020, and I'm like, here I am playing errand girl for these two people who I love, but I'm not getting paid for it. So maybe
Mm.
it's time for me to actually get a job I can get paid to do. So that's when I started looking for a job. And this photography job kind of fell into my lap. So I work for Lifetouch, which does school photography. It allows me to go into a different school every day. All I do is photograph. I don't have to worry about editing, sales, delivery, any of that kind of stuff. All I get to do is spend time with a subject and my camera and take the best photos that I can. So I really took to it very, very well. I enjoyed my job. Um, and then in 2022, I decided to get more serious with personal photography. Um, Life Touch was very cookie cutter, not a whole lot of creativity, and I wanted to take additional steps and take that further. So, um, mid January of 22, I joined the local camera club. So, the following week, I woke up one morning and found Allan passed away on our living room couch.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
I'm so
So
sorry. So that was also very unexpected. I mean, how old was he?
complete. So Allan had just turned 40, a few months before. And one of the reasons that I had been so excited about our relationship is because with Daryl, I always knew subconsciously that I was going to have to spend essentially 30 years of my life on just dealing with statistics. Statistically, with him being 31 years older than me, at some point, if things happened naturally, I was going to be living without him for about. So, on one hand, having this subconscious realization, it did help me deal with that loss a little bit easier than if Daryl had been the same age as me. Um, and then when I started dating Allan, it's like, okay, we're the same age. So we'll I now have that partner who I can spend the rest of my life with and who will be there for those basically those 30 years that Daryl was not able to be with me. So the loss of Daryl was really, really difficult, because it was completely unexpected. It was out of the blue. We later found out he had a blood clot in his heart. So even if I had been awake when it had happened, there was nothing that I could have done to have.
Oh,
And again, I'm so thankful that that I'm in that position where there is nothing I could have done to have changed the outcome of that.
oh. That's such a sad story, Jillian. I am so sorry that you had to endure this, just when you thought that you found the love of your life, the person you're going to
Mhm.
spend the rest of your life with,
Right,
and he passed away on your couch in your house.
correct.
Um, that is, that's unimaginable. It's something I do not
Right.
wish on anybody.
I
I,
mean, losing one partner is is horrible. It's especially at that age. Because you don't expect it. You don't expect to be
mm,
in your mid-30s burying your husband. Um, and things were starting to fall into place again, and life was getting better. It was improving. And then all of a sudden the rug just gets pulled out. It's like, what have I done in a past life to deserve this sort of thing? Um, and then the other difficult thing is, what does that do for my future? You know,
mm,
who do I now look for a relationship with? And how long will that relationship last? You know,
yeah.
um, do I now start dating 25-year-olds? You know, and then what happens when they get to 40? Do I now trade them in for a younger model? So, it's it sort of leaves me in this sort of balancing act that I'm not sure what to do. And the only thing that I have been able to do is to focus on myself, to focus on what brings me joy, what makes me happy, and not to worry about finding somebody else. And go ahead.
So your last Christmas with Allan, um, what year was that you spent your last Christmas with him?
So my last Christmas with Allan was 2021. And then he passed away at the end towards the end of January of 2022, which
Oh,
was 2 days before my birthday. So Daryl had passed away a few days before Thanksgiving, um, which, here in the States is a very family centric holiday. Then it leads through to Christmas, which again, a lot of family involved, and then sort of culminating at the end of January, birthday. So I really struggle a lot through that time period,
yes. And
but I realize
especially
it.
2 days before your birthday,
Right,
it's almost like you don't want to even think about your birthday because your
correct,
heart's already broken when it gets close to that time.
correct, correct.
Um, I can just imagine because
Right,
my twin sister passed away one day before my mother's birthday.
right,
And my mother also said that she never want to have another birthday because it's not a happy time. And I can just imagine what you have been going through now losing the love of your life that you really thought that you were going to spend the rest of your life with.
right. And then my dad
Oh,
is on
it
Mother's
is
Day.
unimaginable. I cannot imagine that. Jillian, tell me, elaborate a little bit about you found him, what happened, and how you handled that pain to move forward.
Well, so I had to get up early that morning to go to work, and every once in a while he would fall asleep on the couch watching TV, and that's what had happened. And I knew that the TV had been on in the background, so it hadn't worried me too much. Um, but when I got up that morning early to go to work, that's when I found it, and I knew immediately that there was nothing to do. So I called the police and the EMTs, and they came. Um, I had to call my brother, which was one of the most difficult phone calls that I'd had to make. And when my brother was with us, he lived in the same town I did. We called Allan's family, or Allan's brother, who showed up as well. Um, and then his brother shared that with the rest of his family. So it was a very traumatic um, experience. And then I took some time off from work because there was now a funeral to plan. But because we were not married, all those decisions were actually made by other members of his
People.
family, which was
Mm,
a little bit difficult. But on the other hand, I was happy to let other people take care of that problem. It wasn't my responsibility to take care of that. So that did
mm,
help to a certain degree. Um, I did go back to work the following week. It was a difficult time going back to work, but it was something that I needed to do. And having that reason to get out of bed definitely has helped. I wasn't, I didn't have the privilege this time around of wallowing and staying in bed and allowing that depression to take over like I had the first time. I also knew what those triggers were prior to ending up in deep depression. So I was able to get medical help to deal with the depression when it was coming along. Um, the other thing that helped a lot is that I had joined this camera club a week before Allan had passed away, and it was a monthly camera club. So I did start getting involved, and I have now had mentors over the years that have improved my photography, and I am actually now the president of that camera club. So I'm now the one who is um, nurturing and mentoring new photographers. I thoroughly enjoy that. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I've also recently been invited to join the board of a local photography exhibition and gallery here in town. So I'm really now using my photography as a rest, a break, finding peace. A lot of my photography is nature photography. So it's a chance to go to get out, be at peace in nature, take my time to get some of the shots. Um, and then it also allows me to meet new people as well and spend time with people who have similar interests. And a lot of the time, I end up in a bit of a mentor or teacher type position, which helps me tremendously. I enjoy that aspect of it.
wow. And I'm sure those pictures was on a trip as well to Africa, because those looks like African
They are.
pictures.
They are. My
Oh,
mom and I ended up in South Africa last year.
I just love elephants.
Hmm.
I also have an elephant painting in my house, and I just love elephants.
Right.
Yeah, your work really is beautiful. Those are really beautiful pictures. I can just see that you definitely have an eye for photos.
I enjoy it.
Yes. And Jillian, what else do you do now to just cope with all your grief? And if you can give us a little bit of advice, and our viewers out there watching us who has lost maybe a husband, what can you tell them?
Probably the best thing that I can suggest is taking time for yourself, figuring out who you are, because in both of my relationships with both Daryl and Allan, I definitely became half of a whole, and everyone knew me as Daryl's wife or Allan's partner. Um, we did a lot of things together. We spent a lot of time together, and we enjoyed spending that time together. So when both of them passed away, I felt very lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my interests were because everything had been us together. So taking that time to really figure out who I was, what I wanted to do, what I enjoyed doing, and then building a community of both like-minded people, but also different people, because I enjoy learning about different people, different places, different things. So it took a while for me to, in fact, it's only been recently that I've realized that of the last 10 years, I've spent 7 of it by myself. And yes, maybe today I feel like I'm struggling, but when I look at it over its entirety, I'm actually doing okay.
Mm.
I'm making my life by myself. I'm not dependent on anybody else. I think that also makes it difficult to find another relationship because I don't have to have another relationship.
Mm.
Um, it would be because I'd want it, and it would have to be somebody who can provide me the things that I'm not able to provide for myself.
For yourself. Wow.
And so also, realizing and understanding triggers has been a big part of this journey as well. Um, Knowing what to look for and how to react to them when they happen. So it's things like, I know driving can be a trigger, especially if it's rush hour traffic, especially if the driver in the car next to me is acting like an idiot. Some of those things can really set me off. And
Mm.
having people who I can call, even at 6 in the morning when most people are still sleeping, I have that safety net, that comfort zone, that
Mm.
support. And then I know that over winter, over and above things that could be seasonal affective disorder, I'm also dealing with these losses, with these anniversaries, all this kind of thing going on. So I know what to look for to see when the depression is getting worse, when I might need to start getting back onto medication, whatever the case is. So knowing those things and keeping myself fairly busy without over exhausting myself. So
Wow.
getting involved with the community, spending time doing things that I'm enjoying doing, all those things, you just have to figure it out.
Yes. Well, that is an amazing story. And thank you so much for telling our viewers about all these things that they can get involved with. Thank you very much for coming on to my show to tell your story to the world. And I wish you all the luck and happiness that must come your way. And I pray that God sends someone that can
Thank
spend
you
the
so
rest of
much, Johanna.
the life with you. I pray that He sent that someone for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us, Jillian.
Thank you.
And here she puts a knot in my throat. And that is why I said gratitude. is very important. We have to be grateful for what we have in our lives. We have to be grateful for the people that is left in our lives to love us. If you are grieving, please seek help. Please read something. And if you need to read something, read my book, Navigating Through Losses and Grief, as I myself has lost my entire family, and know what it is to grieve, and know what it is to be grateful for the people we have in our lives. Well, I am Johanna Vendal. You are watching Give Me Hope with Johanna. Next week, we will speak to Russ Isle, and he's going to tell us the story about losing his parents. He's an actor and a filmmaker, and he's got a really interesting story. So please tune in next week on Give Me Hope with Johanna. Have a good day, and thank you for watching.
This has been Give Me Hope with your host, Johanna Vendel. Join Johanna each week and harness the transformative power of storytelling to facilitate healing and growth. Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern.